We are looking at a 5 kilogram sled that has been pushed with a force to give it an initial velocity of 3 meters per second in the x direction. The coefficient of kinetic friction between the snow and the wood is 0.04. We'd like to find out how far the sled travels before coming to a complete stop. On the left is a free body diagram of the sled during its push. There are 4 forces acting on the sled: the force of gravity, the normal force, which is equal to the force of gravity, the force of the push, and the force of the kinetic friction. After the push, there are only 3 forces acting on the sled: the force of gravity, the normal force, and the force of kinetic friction. In GlowScript, we can enter our givens and our constants. The sled is 5 kilograms. It has an initial velocity of 3 meters per second in the x direction. Its momentum is, of course, its mass times its velocity. Its position is arbitrary, and the value Ri sled, or the initial position of the sled, will be used later on to calculate the total distance traveled. Our constants are the acceleration due to gravity and the kinetic friction constant, which in our case, between wood and snow, is 0.04. Delta t will be 1 decasecond. Now we'll create our objects, set the direction of the sled, and set the forces acting on the sled. The force of gravity is the mass of the sled times the acceleration due to gravity. The normal force on the sled is equal and opposite the force of gravity. Now we can make a loop to demonstrate the motion. The if statement stops the sled from going backwards once its velocity becomes 0. If the velocity isn't 0, we update the net force on the sled, the momentum of the sled, and the position of the sled, as well as increase the time by our delta t and print out statements. Now let's run it. Evidently, it took 7.5 seconds to travel about 11.5 meters.